All right, so let's do an update here on the Toro Workmaster restoration project. And we've been making some significant progress. We got the engine in. We got the fuel system plumbed. We got all the transmission lines that we replaced. We got them all hooked up. We got the transmission primed. We had it jacked up, and then you freewheel the hydrostatic forward and backwards until you got all the air out of it and properly primed with oil. So we got a brand new oil filter on the hydrostatic. It's got new oil. So we made a battery holder here because there was none. It was just a rubber strap, an old one. So I used some angle iron that I painted red, some small angle iron and some ready rod and some wing nuts for a battery hold down. So we got the battery all secure. The engine was all freshly overhauled. It's got new oil, new filter. It's got a new fuel pump. It's got a new fuel filter. We got that all good. We've test ran it. We had it outside. This is the progress that we've made so far. We also put in a brand new, really cool fuel gauge. This is a sending unit that's got a stainless piece of tubing that goes down into the tank. And then there's a magnet with sensors in it that slide up and down on that tube. And then it's got a gauge up here. We actually have a lighted gauge. So the gauge, when you turn the lights on and the keys on, we actually get lights to come on in the fuel gauge. Very cool. You can actually change the light. There's a switch on the back of the gauge. And you can change the light like 8 different colors. Very cool. So we got the dash all done. The brakes, we're still working the brakes. So what I did is I replaced the fuel gauge and the sending unit for the fuel gauge because that was junk. And then the gentleman had a piece of tubing, piece of angle iron here with a cheap lawnmower throttle. And he ran the cable through this hole. There was no cup holder here. I also put in a cup holder. That was just a giant hole where the original one was. So I got a cup holder in here. And then I got a throttle that fit in here just like it was originally. So I did away with his angle iron that he had bolted on here and ran the cable. Got rid of all the gobbledygook. We're also getting a new ignition switch. I don't have it yet. This is hard to turn. I guess it's getting old and worn out. So we'll get this replaced yet. And we also have LED lights. The charging gauge responds. The hour meter works. So basically everything on the dash except for the ignition switch is done. So I moved the choke over here so that you can use your left hand for choking it. It's got a spring return. That's good. So we got the choke over here so you can use both your hands to start it. You pull the choke with your left hand and then turn the key with your right. That's how you want it. And then we had to put in a new light switch because the old one was bad. So we got so much done already. And the lights come on. The way to have it wired from the factory is the lights come on even with the key off. I guess that was preferred for golf course equipment like this. So we got super bright LEDs. So I did away with the old halogens and went with LEDs. And then I had to wire tail lights into it. There were no tail lights. So we got LED tail lights. And the reason I mounted them like this is because there's kids going to be operating this. If I would have put them like this, where you would think they should be, they would have used these for a step, and they're plastic. They're chromed plastic. And I didn't want to make them as a step. So that's why I did them like that. So we got taillights, which we didn't have before. That all works. We replaced the hydrostatic filter. It looked like we were still at the factory one. And the hoses that ran up from the transmission rear end to this cooler up here, the lines are replaced. They were leaking by where they were crimped. What we still have left, I'm going to turn the lights off. So what we still have left is this is almost empty and there's a lot of debris in the bottom. So I'm going to remove these bolts and empty the tank and then clean it out and then put it back. I don't feel like this is how you want to start out with a machine that you just rebuilt, is a tank full of debris like that. It's super easy. I can just loosen the clamp underneath the tank and slip the hose off, and then we'll Gonna clean out what's in there, all the debris. Maybe flood it and then get rid of all the water that we flooded it with. Where if you flood it and all the debris just oozes out the top, but you got to do it when you have the bottom part off, so that you're not sending any water into the fuel line. So I'm very impressed with what we got so far. Looks really good. The engine cowl, this is the engine cowl that the seat also gets mounted to. We also got to do the seats, but that's for some other time. So I made this engine cowl so that there isn't so much stuff to remove from it when you take it off the machine. So the gentleman before me, he had a choke mounted on the side there. So you had to reach down to your lower right, left-hand side for the choke. That's no longer on here. The choke is now in the dash. And then the regulator rectifier, which was originally bolted here, you just unplug this. This was like this. But the choke is gone. And then the cooling fan, yeah, that was it. So he had a 12-inch cooling fan in here from a car. I went with a new 10-inch one. And I have a controller here. There's only one wire that goes from the engine. There's one wire that connects to the red wire on here. And it's a bullet connector. So when we go to take this whole thing off, you unplug the wire by the controller. There's one wire on a bullet, and then this regulator rectifier. It's all there's to it to take this engine cowl off. So it's very much simplified from what it was. So yeah, liking what we've done so far. The brakes, once we're done up front here, once I get the fuel system, the fuel tank cleaned out, I got the ignition replaced. We're gonna pull one of the rear axles, figure out what brake style brakes we need from the Torque Spider, which version it is, and get those ordered. That's all that's left. It's the brakes in the rear. So we have a master cylinder under here. We replaced some lines in the back, so everything is good for the brakes. From the master cylinder on back, the lines are all leak free. All we need to do is the wheel cylinders now. So yeah, knocking it down.